When I work on my injection molder TARS here on the right side, I have different options of molds that I can work with. There are aluminum molds, steel molds, and even molds made from resin material. Since my budget for making molds isn't that big, I like to design molds first in resin material. It's just a great way to test all the functions of a mold before investing in a longer lasting version made from metal. Resin molds are super interesting to me because I can basically check all the functions of an injection mold, and all of that possible for a small maker engineer in his apartment studio like me. I can basically draft the mold during the day, print it overnight, and test it the next day on my machine. And if I see that everything works, I can still order them in aluminum or steel later on. This one here is a mold for an AirTag keychain, and I use it to produce these keychains from shredded plastic waste. The waste gets melted in the TARS machine and injected into the mold cavity. There it cools down like in a normal injection mold, and there you have a finished product. In this video I want to break down how those molds are made, how much they cost, and how they perform when used for real injection molding tests on my TARS molder. Before I can test a new mold, everything starts with thinking about the right part to make. Since TARS is designed to produce parts from recycled plastic, I always try to come up with something that doesn't just test the machine but also has a real purpose. The machine isn't built for large parts. The maximum shot size that I tried before was a little bit below 40 grams. So I usually focus on small functional designs within that range. And that is how I ended up with the idea for an AirTag keychain. Also, a few months ago I lost the keys to my car, actually both of them, which ended up costing me more than 1,500 euros for the towing and making 2 new keys in total. And all of that could have probably been prevented if I had an AirTag on my keychain. So this part made perfect sense for me. First, I designed the keychain in a way that looked nice and was suitable for injection molding. To test the fit properly, I printed it on my resin printer first. Once the fit was good enough and not too tight, I moved on to design the mold. Before creating the actual cavities, I scaled the part size up by about 2%, since polypropylene tends to shrink roughly that amount when cooling inside the mold. Then I oriented both parts evenly in the mold so that they would fill symmetrically. The parting line is placed at the very bottom of each part, and those fancy looking wings that make the keychain look a bit like a cartoon rocket are simply there to leave space between the mold halves when they close. I don't expect these tiny areas to fill completely with the material, and since the resin print isn't perfectly accurate after curing, everything needs a bit more tolerance. Just as a reminder, I didn't learn mold design professionally. It's more of a learning by doing process for me. So if someone who does this every day is watching, they're probably face palming right now. If you have any suggestion on how to improve it, feel free to comment or reach out to me. The pattern on the back here is just to save material. And these 4 cones help align the mold halves during the assembly. Another cool thing with resin molds is that I can easily add small details like this text here in cat. And so the next person who sees this keychain knows exactly what material it's made of. The 2 pins here act as shafts where the screws will go later. I'd imagine if the mold ever breaks, it would probably happen there first, since these shafts are the thinnest part of the entire cavity. I slice the mold in Cheeto box and orient both halves in a way that makes sense for this design. There are no supports on the joining faces so that they stay perfectly smooth and aligned. Making this digital file into a real part is still kind of magic to me. For this one I am printing both halves on the Illigo Saturn 16K using TR300 resin from Frozen. This resin is specified as heat resistant up to 220 degrees Celsius, which makes it suitable for short injection runs, although molten polypropylene, which I use in the TARS machine, reaches roughly 240 degrees Celsius. So it's right at the limit. The full print takes about 6 to 7 hours, which means I can start it in the evening and have it ready the next morning. 1 liter of the TR300 resin costs around 70 euros per kilogram, and this specific mold, including all supports, uses just under 400 grams of material. That brings the resin cost for one complete mold to roughly 28 euros. Of course, there are additional costs like energy consumption, cleaning materials, and the printer itself, which as of October 2025 costs around 500 euros. But since I use this printer for all sorts of projects, it is difficult to assign a clear cost share per mold. With parts at this complexity level and size, I'm already lucky that I can produce most of them on my own printers, but from time to time there are components I simply cannot make myself or where I need some professional help. That brings me to the sponsor of this video, PCBWay. They offer services like high-quality 3D printing, CNC machining, and complete PCB assembly, which has helped me a lot in past projects. I used their 3D printing service for larger parts and also whenever I did not want to deal with the hassle of SLA printing at home. They even helped me realize the core boards of the Pedro project by manufacturing fully assembled PCBAs. My experience with them so far has been really good, and what I liked especially is that whenever I had questions regarding an order, I was immediately connected to one of the specialists who could help me directly. If you are working on your own projects and need a reliable manufacturing support, go check them out through the link in the description of this video. Before I can inject a part, the molder has to be preheated and self-checks have to be run. The machine could potentially destroy itself if it starts turning the extrusion screw with a cold extruder, so I have added different safety functions to prevent that. I control the machine via this touch display with an interface that I wrote myself. It communicates with the controller by sending a string, depending on what functions need to be executed. In this case, I start the preheating profile. The mold can already be installed by preheating, that is not a problem. Only later we will have to make sure that there is no material cooling from the nozzle. How far the preheating process already is displayed with a small progress bar. After about 50 minutes of preheating, the machine is ready and the extruder can be unlocked. If you listen carefully, you can hear the stepper motor running a small audio profile with different frequencies to confirm it's unlocked. Then I run a test profile on the extruder, which is checked by the current sensor and the controller to see if the torque on the motor is within a normal range. If the torque is in a normal range, it is measured by a current sensor that a friend of mine developed for this project. The stepper motor torque is pretty much linear with the current consumption, and that load is constantly measured by the controller to have some sort of feedback of how hard the screw needs to turn at any moment. All of that is displayed in this tiny graph here on the display. After that, I have to make sure the extruder is loaded and the small plug that is left from the former test has to be removed. I can just flush that out with a small push from the extrusion screw. Next, the machine references the mold thickness. The controller basically counts the steps until the mold heart's closed, and it knows the mold is closed when the current in the mold arises. With that value, the speed profile for the segment where the plates run fast and slow is created. I could also just teach the thickness of the mold in the GUI, but I thought it was cool to show that the machine can also figure it out by itself. I can check if all systems are green and ready to go with a page on the GUI. The only one orange here is showing that I did not teach the machine a value for the mold thickness, but that is normal since we just measured it. Then all that is left to do for me is closing everything so that this build looks again like a machine, another project, and the actual injection can start. I just had all of this build opened up so that it's easier for you to see what is going on. I hope it is somewhat understandable. The GUI is not that pretty and needs some simplification as well as graphics design, but for now it works reliable and that is the most important at the moment. Now that the mold is installed, the process can start. In the process page, I can set all values like the injection steps, so basically the amount of grams that are put into the mold, the force so that the clamp mechanism should keep the mold closed, and the cooling times. Each of the produced parts is around 10 grams of polypropylene, and the color they have comes from the material it is made of. These are white and blue cream cups, so the part itself is a light bluish color. One full cycle of making a keychain takes around 120 seconds, and for injection molding that is very long, and most of the time is due to the long cooldown period. Resin conducts heat much worse than aluminum, so the part takes longer to cool down. If I were to open the mold too quickly, it could still be more liquid than solid, and that is another thing to consider when working with resin molds. The parts here also tend to stay stuck on the wrong side, and that is another good learning for me with this resin mold. I should have designed it in a better way so that the part stays on the movable plate. That is something I will definitely keep in mind when I switch to an aluminum mold. Working with directly shredded plastic waste is definitely harder than working with Belgian pellets, but I will for sure try those as well. This machine is not only meant for recycling but also for prototyping and small-scale production. Using this inhomogeneous flakes also makes it much harder to predict when the mold is completely filled. As you can see here, sometimes the part is more filled, sometimes it's not filled enough. For me, that is probably the last big thing I need to fix before the machine can run 100% reliably with polypropylene plastic waste. Maybe this could be measured using the motor current sensor or even an in-cavity pressure sensor, or maybe both of them. Another thing I noticed with the resin mold is the lack of accuracy. These thin flashings that appear here are caused by the mold halves not fitting perfectly together. That always leaves a small gap, which then leads to these kinds of flashing. This is another point where material choice and a different printer, for example maybe a Formnext machine with the 10K resin, could help. But with my current setup, that is definitely a limitation. A milled aluminum mold would be much more precise. Over 60 shots have already been done. Each shot was roughly 10 grams, so in total about 600 grams of material went through the mold. The good parts produced with it still need to be deburred before assembly, which is an extra process that would not be necessary with a better mold. This total also includes short shots and failed fills. For these brown keychains down here I used shredded polypropylene plant parts. The mold still looks intact so far. I honestly do not know how much further we will push it, but the results up to this point are surprisingly solid. I can also clearly see where the part struggles to fill properly and where the material flow already works well. The engraved line saying 100% recycled polypropylene turned out great. I did not expect it to look this crisp, so that was a very nice surprise. I took most of the AirTag keychains from this test and turned them into a giveaway back in November, so most of these are already in use and serving their purpose. Up to now I always had to melt the inserts into the part afterwards, and I'm really curious how much easier this will be with a mold that already has the insert installed during injection. After running several cycles and molds, I am honestly very much surprised by how well these resin molds hold up. They last much longer than I expected, and even though the material gets exposed to 250 degrees of polypropylene, and the material is only specified for 220 degrees Celsius, that really speaks for the strength and heat resistance of this TR300 material. And just to be clear, I'm not sponsored by Frozen in any way. I use this material since a few years, and I think it's honestly just really cool how that product can be used for this type of application. If I ever want to produce larger quantities, say over 100 parts, I will definitely switch to an aluminum mold, probably from a 70-75 alloy, which has worked for me super well before. But being able to test everything in resin first saves a lot of time and money. For example, I once made a wall mount mold directly from aluminum and accidentally placed the gate off center, and that single mistake made the whole mold completely unusable. It also set me back around 400 euros, and not even speaking of just the wasted aluminum material. Yeah, so that piece could have become a really nice functional mold, and now it's just basically a display item of how not to design a mold. So being able to find those kinds of issues early with a 30 euro printed mold is a huge advantage for me. Another thing to consider with these molds is the different cooling behavior. Resin conducts the heat much less efficiently compared to aluminum, and so the cooldown time is much higher. Parts with very thick walls are especially tricky. I also made a mold from resin for a drawer knob, which turned out to be far too thick for this type of material. It takes just way too long to cool down to be practical. Other materials like PETG tend to stick very, very hard to the mold surface, which I also found out the hard way, and so I also think those molds are restricted to a certain set of polymers. For the long run, aluminum or steel will always be the better choice for serious production, but for testing the ideas, the fit and the functionality, those resin molds are a really cool shortcut. That's it from me guys so far, thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my printed projects, you can check out my work on Etsy or become a Patreon supporter. I'm most active on Instagram, where I share the latest updates and behind the scenes progress on projects like this one.